And there are some other, like hopscotch, 1, 2, 3, and this 3 is the drawing that has not been made before in the book. When you look for these things, for example, equivalent plots for turbulent convection, especially of the boundary layer kind. But this is now an entire field. Lots of people who do heat transfer research are publishing heat lines. And then you may describe the sort of aha, the one that leads to drawings that have not been made before, as a new vision of how heat is transferred by convection because of the, let's say, synergy between flow direction and heat transfer direction. Heat transfer direction being known from conduction because you know the temperature field. Okay? I alluded to the fact that this kind of synergy, quote unquote, was published in 1998, where the word synergy replaced the word heat lines. Was published by a well-known professor at Tsinghua University. And I wrote a paper showing clearly the similarity between the two ideas and the chronology. And I'm going to send you this paper of mine. I published it, and here's the title of it: Heat Lines. This is the actual title. Versus synergy. Comment that, meaning the punchline from the paper, referred to the times, and these are now the times when science publications were beginning to appear online. And I wrote, I said, at bottom, this is in my abstract, it has become a lot easier to take an existing idea, change some keywords and drawings, and publish the old idea as new. You see, that's a generally applicable observation that was evident in the late 1990s. And I've been paying attention to that, and this video that you're going to project now, please show it. This lecture is about how ideas spread, how to distinguish, how to decide whether an idea is new or a remake of an older idea, and why this distinction is relevant in today's scientific publishing climate. Ideas spread in S-curve fashion. Size of the population empowered by the new idea is growing monotonically in the way in which is shown in this graph. If the size of the population is plotted on the ordinate, then over time, the size increases slowly, and then fast, and then slowly again. Pictures are three ideas. One is the radio, then the TV, and then you can take your pick of a scientific paper that is being read by many, and of course used by many people. Now, before there was a radio, there was an idea, a mental viewing. And it is that mental viewing that is spreading, and it's for that reason that these S-curves are not all the same. Some are tall, some are very difficult to notice. The tall ones correspond to ideas that are important, but also to ideas that benefit from more effective popularizing, from better authors, better teachers, but also from more gifted followers who are very good at getting inspired from existing ideas and then doing new things with those. My lecture is about the latter. It is about those who use ideas that are already in existence and then portray them as new. That is the kind of academic misconduct that is known to all of us. It is policed by institutions empowered to do the policing, such as the National Science Foundation in the United States of America. And the definition of that misconduct is on the screen. You can read it. Now, the problem with it is that the act of identifying work that is in reality not new is done by computers, which are very good at identifying text, that is words, text that had been published before. Well, the problem is that in scientific publishing, not acknowledging existing sources is not the same as in poetry and prose. In science, what spreads is the idea, the mental viewing, and that presently at least is not identified or detected by software. It is for that purpose that I propose this solution to distinguish between an original and a remake. Just look at the figures in the new publication, and because the figures are expressing the mental viewing, and because the pictures do not lie. I'm going to give you 6 or 7 examples of this sort of comparison. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. In fact, I don't know what went on through the mind of the person who published the new version. I know even less about the older version, meaning I don't know whether the old version is indeed original. The point is that there are similarities, and what all these examples have in common is that the new version, the publication of that, did not acknowledge precedents. So the first example is the breakthrough in the fluid mechanics of is called two-phase flow. In this case, a gas bubble rising through a tube filled with water. The idea came with a drawing in 1941. It turns out that the same idea and the same drawing propagates without acknowledgement ever since. A second example is the idea of how to vehicle water out of a fluid out of an area to one point. In this case, the area is a square. You can imagine this as being the plane on which rain is falling uniformly. And the evacuation point is this corner. Now, this is a modular model, as you can see in this construction, that shows that one way to vehicle the water out of the plane is through a tree-like architecture. That is the old drawing. The newer version is on the right. One can argue that the new is not the same drawing as the older, but you don't have to be an art critic to recognize that the new drawing is the same as the old after repeating the old several times around the dial. The next example is about the same kind of flow from area to point. This flow is really not simple because the area has an infinite number of points. The other one is a single point. In this case, the gate shown on the left. In this version, rain is falling on the square, and that water is conducted by seepage through the sand that occupies the square and then evacuated through the port. If the seepage velocity is high enough, then it has the ability to wash away some of the grains, and in so doing, it creates these river beds that look like fingers. So that's shown here in the black. The old version is on the left, the newer publication on the right. The drawings are not identical, but the idea is the same. the difference is due to the fact that in the new version, a different software and a different nomenclature was used in order to present the result as new. The next example requires a brief thermodynamics introduction. It is about something that started to appear in 1984, the thermodynamics of everything that moves in nature. Everything that moves because it is driven by power. The power comes from a power source, either the sun or fuels and other things buried in the ground. Driven that way the driving is done by an engine that is fueled by this power, and then that movement dissipates the power completely because of irreversibilities or friction between the mover and the immediate environment. This tableau in blue is one example of such a moving and morphing architecture. It is the circuit executed by water in nature. We all know the components of that. Water comes down as rain, then it flows horizontally on the landscape, and then it goes back in the air as evaporation from water surfaces, but also from vegetation. On the landscape, the movers are also the animals and the people in their vehicles. They're all spreading water horizontally, and they're all evolving over time, just like the architecture of the river channels and the delta channels. So on the left, the old tableau, on the right, the new tableau. Both share the main features, which are that the circulation is counterclockwise and that the rain is falling down and to the left. So one is inspired to think that the artist of the new was in fact looking at the older piece of art when this drawing was made. And then finally, a comparison that requires no question mark after it. On the left, the very famous jet fighter from the USSR called the Sukhoi 27. And then on the right, the same thing 2 decades later from the People's Republic of China, which is called J11. So the conclusion, or in fact my contribution to this particular topic, is that to decide between original and remake, it helps to look at the pictures. Maybe one day artificial intelligence will be intelligent enough to do this work for us. But until then, my suggestion is that absolutely necessary are human eyes and human brains, and that means you, the observer.